Welcome to Surviving Roots, the podcast where we journey through the complexities of our emotions together. I'm your host, Carrie Fund, and I'm here to guide you on a path of self-discovery, understanding, and healing. In each episode, we'll explore a range of emotions and experiences, from navigating grief and trauma to managing stress and anxiety. Through candid conversations, expert insights, and practical strategies, we'll uncover the tools you need to navigate life's emotional landscape with resilience and grace. So, let's embark on this transformative journey together. Take a deep breath. Allow yourself this time. This podcast is for you. Vasavi Kumar is a first-generation Indian immigrant raised on Long Island, New York. Diagnosed with bipolar disorder at 19, she made it her mission to understand her mind, starting by making room to hear herself think. Vasavi is a licensed therapist, and through her Say It Out Loud podcast, keynote talks, and group programs, she has taught thousands of entrepreneurs, creatives, and artists how to work through any situation by saying it out loud. Her book, Say It Out Loud, is changing the personal growth and empowerment game. Welcome, Vasavi.
Hi, Carrie. Thanks so much for having me here.
Thank you so much for joining me today. And first, huge congratulations on your new book.
Thank you. Say it out loud.
Say It Out Loud. I got to tell you, I'm taking my time with this one. I have to keep going back and reading a couple of chapters because it's just such full of like these little honest, powerful tidbits. I feel like, wait, that's going to create the biggest shift for me. That's going to create the biggest shift. And I'm like underlining everything.
Thank you.
Oh, well, before we dive into your amazing new book, this podcast, Surviving Roots, is all about turning our pain into our power and our potential. And I would love to see if you could share how your upbringing and some life experiences got you into writing this book.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on Long Island, New York. I'm a first generation Indian immigrant, and I did not grow up in a house where things were swept underneath the rug. I grew up in a house very much, it was a say it out loud house. My father did not say it out loud a lot. He kept a lot of stuff inside. My mother, however, I definitely learned from my mother the power of just speaking your truth out loud, mostly because I lied a lot as a child because I was terrified of my mother. That's just the truth. I lied so much as a child because I was so afraid of her, but she disciplined me and forced me in a way to say the truth out loud no matter what. Now, that was a little hard for me at first because I was still very terrified of her, but I definitely think that upbringing and the way that she raised me led to me writing this book because I know how many people out there do suffer in silence because they are afraid to say their truth out loud. They don't have someone safe that they can say it out loud to. So I definitely think the way that I grew up impacted me writing this book.
Wow. Yeah, I know so many people listening can relate to that, me especially. I would love to know, well, first, you just brought up something. What do your parents think of your book? Your mom?
My mother has never read the book.
Mm-hmm.
She refuses to. If I'm being completely honest, she refuses to read. Not in a like angry way, but she just, for her, reading about the pain that I've been through is really hard for her, even though she knows everything. I'm an open book in my family. I'm very transparent on social media with my family, but I think it was really hard for her to read the book. My father is sick. He has a neurological condition, so he has not been able to actually read the book. So my sister did read the book and she loved it.
She loved it.
Yeah, she loved it. But my older sister, but my parents have not read the book. But they know that I wrote a book called Say It Out Loud. And I think it's just hard for parents to sometimes hear the truth from their kids, you know? So I've forgiven her for that. I'm not upset about that. I mean, it's her choice whether she wants to read it or not. Yeah.
Yeah. And for you, how was it sharing these, such personal stories when writing this book? Like, what did that feel like for you?
It's cathartic, Carrie. I mean, here's the thing. I started therapy when I was 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very much in the habit and practice of just speaking my truth out loud. So when I wrote the book, I just had an arsenal of stories that I knew that I was going to draw from to write this book. Every single chapter in the book starts with the story, starts with something that's happened in my life, and I tie that into the rest of the message in each chapter. It wasn't hard for me. It really wasn't. I don't want to lie and say like it was so hard for me to share these stories. Like these are things that I have come to terms with. These are things that I do not have shame around. And that's
Mhm.
really the most important thing that I want to say to your audience and your listeners is, shame shrivels when you say it out loud. And when you say it out loud long enough, to the right people, not just to anyone. This is not just like word vomiting all over your audience or word
Yeah.
vomiting all over people. When you do that enough, it actually becomes easier for you to write or say your truth out loud
I love that. Shame shrivels.
when you
That's
say it out loud.
when you
Yeah.
say it out loud, shame shrivels. I love that. Um, well, you're an open book, and I love your vulnerability. It really is like your superpower, and I feel like that's what makes your book so powerful. And readers have so many takeaways from it that they can just immediately apply to their life. Um, how did being diagnosed with bipolar disorder at 19, how did that shape your life and your career in general? And not only just your book, but you are a woman of many hats.
I am a woman of many hats. Yeah, having bipolar disorder, it's a lifelong condition. And I've lived with it now for since I was 19, so 23 years. I'm 42 now. It has definitely shaped how I run my business. It has shaped how I interact with people. And most importantly, it has transformed the relationship that I have with myself. When you live with a lifelong condition, a mood disorder like bipolar disorder, you have to know yourself very well. You have to
Mhm.
know your triggers. You have to know the things that set you off. You have to know the things that make you feel good. I mean, and this is not just for anyone who has bipolar disorder. This goes for all
I
of
was
us.
just going to say everything you're
Yeah,
saying is applying to me, so I get
exactly.
it. Yeah.
I just had to learn about myself really quickly because otherwise this mood disorder would take over. And I am on medication, and I openly say this. There's no shame in being on medication. If it's going to
Mhm.
help you turn the volume down just a little bit in your mind, then explore it. This is not medical advice, but it has definitely shaped, yeah, like I said, the way that I run my business, the way that I interact with people, my compassion and empathy for other people who are struggling with other mental health challenges has greatly gone up because I've had to extend that same empathy and compassion towards myself.
Wow, I mean, that's really amazing. And like you said, you had to really get to know yourself. And this really everything you're saying really applies to people beyond any kind of mental health disorder or issue. Everyone, just in general, that's listening, if that doesn't resonate with you, just getting to know yourself sooner in life than later, I think would fuel so many things, positive things in our life and the way we live our life and the relationship we have with ourselves.
Absolutely. Like, when I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, I say this in my book, the first feeling that I felt was relief because I knew that my behavior was not in alignment with my values, with a lot of the stuff that I was doing, a lot of the symptoms of bipolar disorder, excessive spending, hypersexuality, substance abuse, alcohol abuse, and just really the way that I was behaving was in extremes. And I
Mhm.
knew that something was off. So when I got diagnosed, I felt a lot of relief. In fact, the first thing that I did when I got diagnosed was I went to the bookstore about 2 days later and I found this book called The Tao of Bipolar Disorder. And it said that people who have bipolar disorder, they really struggle with being conflicted within. It's the two sides of us. We all deal with this. I just deal with it in a much greater way because of this condition and because of the neurodivergence of my brain. And so this is for anyone listening, the greatest gift that you can give yourself is to learn about your mind and understand your mind, understand your body so that you can move through this world from a more aligned place and feeling more like you and being true to yourself.
Amen to that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, I want to get into this book because you know, it's called Say It Out Loud, Using the Power of Your Voice to Listen to Your Deepest Thoughts and Courageously Pursue Your Dreams. Why is self-talk so important?
My God, I don't, God, that's a big question, but it shapes everything. It's what you're telling yourself. We're so concerned about what other people are going to say to us, and we're
Mhm.
so worried about being judged and criticized by other people. But I guarantee you're doing the same thing to yourself,
Yeah.
right? So it really is it's like the head office in our minds, right? That's directing us and telling us who we are, what we should do, what we shouldn't do. And there's a constant narrative going on. And it's these stories that we tell ourselves that really dictate how we feel, how we think, and ultimately the actions that we take or don't take. So self-talk is everything. It is the directions, I say this in the book, it's the directions that you're giving to yourself, to your mind, to your body, as to what to do, as to what not to do. And so many people out there are not taking action on their dreams. And I can almost bet that it's because of what you're telling yourself. So yeah, self-talk is definitely the key to you courageously pursuing your dreams, and understanding and being more kind and mindful and compassionate with yourself is the key to courageously pursuing your dreams.
That's so true. And I love that you say, this book really teaches us how to talk to ourselves. Your book, I love how you wrote it. I love that it starts with a question. Then you have these beautifully, written chapters. Your voice is so powerful and so honest. And I love that you end it with an exercise and an affirmation. I mean, we're just like boom, 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 boom. You guys, like when you read this book, you're just getting it all. That's why I'm taking my time and I'm going back and reading like chapter 1 twice, chapter 4 twice. Like I don't know. There's like reading it once, it's not enough. You got to go back and just comb through it and make sure you don't miss anything. I love how you wrote this book.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Well, the thing that I told my publisher and editor was, this is going to be the kind of book that you don't even need a journal for. You just need your voice. I mean, of course, if you want to whip out your journal, you can. But every single exercise at the end of the book, I ask you a question, and then you have to ask yourself that question out loud. And here's the kicker, you have to respond to yourself out loud too. And I know that may seem weird, may seem a little crazy, because we never want to be that person that's talking to ourselves, but we are still people. We are still, we're constantly consulting with other people. And I'm postulating in this book, you can talk to yourself and you can be that person for yourself, because you have intuition inside of you. You have that inner guidance inside of you. You have the God inside of you. You can connect to that part of you whenever you want by asking yourself questions and responding truthfully out loud.
Truthfully out loud. Yeah. Well, you mentioned that this is an alternative guide to journaling.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about that? Like if people that are constantly journaling or trying to incorporate journaling into their life, what does that mean exactly?
So I should just say in full transparency, I am not a journaler. I don't journal. I mean, I own many a journal, but I use them to like write notes in, and I don't journal. But your voice is a muscle. It is still an organ in the body, and we need to exercise that. So you can write all the time, and that's fine. If that works for you, do that, and add on this book and the exercises of self-talk out loud to your healing modalities that you're using. I just found for myself that when I was journaling, I would tell half truths. And I would have it filter through my mind. And by the time it hit the paper, it just wasn't as honest as it could be. Not that I was choosing to lie. It just, you're writing it on paper. You want it to look good. You want it to sound good. That's just for me, at least. Some people out there might be brutally honest with their journaling, but I found for myself that it still felt a little watered down for me. But when I use my voice, I found myself never to tell a lie. And that goes back to childhood. That goes back to getting in trouble for telling lies and being forced to tell the truth out loud. Yeah. So yeah, it is definitely an alternative guide. And I would go on to say that it's something that you can do in addition to your journaling as well.
That's amazing. I love that you say our voice is a muscle. And like, the more we use it, the stronger it gets. So many of these things, like, it's like, if you weren't taught them as a child, like all of these inside tools that we have, if we can like activate them and make them strong, what it can do, for ourselves as we grow up. Like if you don't learn these things as a child, you don't even know how to use them. Why do you think so many of us are born with like the negative self-talk? Like, why do we lean into the negative self-talk? Like, why isn't having a positive, self-talk, like our like come natural to us or to a lot of people?
Yeah. So you're asking why self-talk and like mastering that self-talk, not our default. I mean, I write this in the book, is that we're like sponges. We soak up everything. We soak up the messages from society, from TV, from our peers, from our colleagues, from our parents. And so we are just inundated with all these messages. And we're told, do this. You have to be this way. Follow this path. And we're never actually given the space or the time to actually sit and be with ourselves and ask ourselves what we want. We also live in a society where being productive and busy all the time is worn like a badge of honor. And we need to stop glorifying the grind, right? Yeah. So we're constantly busy. We're constantly just doing things, and we're not slowing down enough to actually hear ourselves think and what we're thinking about ourselves. So it's just programming. That's
Yeah.
how I would answer that question. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so true what you just said. I'm 46 years old and I just learned this within the past 2 years is that, living in a constant fight or flight, I realized 2 years ago that if I slowed down,
Mm-hmm.
I actually can be more productive and I can hear myself think. Like, I don't think I've rarely even tuned into my own intuition or inner voice because I was either too busy or living in chaos and things are too loud that I've never even been able to hear myself. Like
Yeah.
it's amazing. And I know a lot of people listening, like that doesn't make sense to you, that how can you get more done and be more productive and more focused by slowing down? Yeah, it's a hard concept, I guess, to grasp. I don't know. Can you like add on to that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Like just like you, I've slowed down a lot in the past 2 years, especially when I turned 40. You're 46, so I know you probably get this. Something shifted inside of me when I turned 40. I just stopped caring so much about what other people thought. I just
Yeah.
stopped judging myself so much. I stopped shooting all over
Yeah.
myself about what I should and shouldn't do. And I really have found that the happiest people that I have met are moving slower. They are not moving faster. They are
Yeah.
moving slower. And I think, and I say this in my book in the chapter, Ask Your Intuition Out Loud, we can really tap into our intuition when we are still and we are silent. But how can we do that if we're constantly moving and have noise all around us? So
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever too late to tap into your intuition. So whether you're 46, 36, 56, or however old you are, it's never too late to just slow down, do one thing at a time, and really take the time to listen to what you are experiencing, how you're feeling, what it is that you really want, and so on and so forth.
That's so true. And everyone listening, no matter what age you are, I swear, like, do it sooner than later. Don't be
Yeah.
in your 20s and your early 30s dreading when you turn like almost 40 or your 50s. Because, I mean, when I turned 40, I had a great shift and it's like it all clicked and I stopped caring about everything else outside of me. And I really started tuning in. And dear God, if Carrie could have done that back in her 20s, like who
Exactly.
knows where I would be now? I'd have less healing and reparenting to do. I could have gotten my shit done a lot earlier in life and had a lot more time, but
Yeah,
you know, start doing it
absolutely.
now, people. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Well, I do want to mention because when I read your book, I always start with the acknowledgments for some reason. I don't know why I feel like it gives me a glimpse into like the author's like heart behind the book. And first, I have to say, I saw Rochelle Fredgen's name, a mutual acquaintance, the most amazing book proposal coach.
Yes.
Second, I love that you thanked your inner child. I thought that was so awesome because so many of us, they were shameful of our past or our wounds. We don't even want to recognize that there's any healing that needs to be done with our inner child. So I've never seen that before. I thought that was awesome that you did that.
Thank you. I thought it was, I'm not going to lie. I thought it was a little self-indulgent, but it's like, you know what?
Oh,
I would not be where I am today without this little girl inside of me who is the
yes.
purest soul, who is so happy, so joyful. And I just wanted to give a shout out to that younger version of myself because she is still very alive and
Yeah.
exists and is constantly guiding me and working alongside my healthy inner adult. Right.
Yeah.
We all have an inner child. We also have an inner adult,
Yeah.
unhealthy and healthy. Right. And hopefully this book will help you get to a more healthy inner adult. But I appreciate you saying that. Yes.
I love it. I thought it was such a little badass comment. But you also mentioned your uncle Kumar and how his death really saved your life. And if you don't mind, I'd love for you to share more about that.
Yeah. So my dad is one of six, and and the youngest in the family is my uncle Lakshmi Kumar, and he took his own life. He hung himself from a fan.
Mm.
He struggled with addiction. He struggled with alcoholism, and this happened all in India. And in India, mental health is not really discussed. People don't, I mean, now it's much more discussed now. People are going to therapy, but back then, this is like 30 some odd years ago,
Yeah.
they just thought he was a troublemaker. And he ended up taking his own life. And I remember when I found out about this, I was 10 years old. My father did not lie to me about this. He told me exactly how he died. And I just couldn't, I mean, at that age, I don't think I should have been told how he was killed, how he ended up taking his own life. But I just remember thinking to myself, no one should have to go through this. No one should have to take their own life. And if only he had been given the tools, and if only he had had his safe space to talk to, he would still be alive today. So I feel like ever since I came to know that that's how my uncle took his own life, I have made it my mission to help other people never suffer in silence again, because I don't think anyone should have to take their own life.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I agree. It was heartbreaking. I don't know if I've ever cried reading an acknowledgement section in a book before, but yeah, yours was very moving. And I just wanted to know, like, so many people in our lives, whether they're living or not, they can really inspire us or cause a great shift with us to want to do better. They can sort of be our scars as the reminders to do better. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you, thank you so much for sharing.
Of course, anytime. Yeah, I actually his death anniversary is coming up September 1st. It's always a very somber time for me. And I always think of him September 1st because that was the day that he took his own life. And I always try to do something special in honor of him. I always feel like he's right near me. And I didn't spend a lot of time with him growing up. As a kid, we would go to India every year. And I saw him here and there, but I was still young. But I still feel very deeply connected to him. Obviously, it's my father's brother. It affected my father so much. I
Yeah.
remember, yeah, I feel very deeply about this cause and this, and I never want anyone to feel like they have to resort to that or any sort of self-harm in order to feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you've definitely been very open about challenges in your life and how it's really shaped you and fueled your potential. I want to mention you work with many entrepreneurs, creatives, and artists. And I would love to know, when you're working with them, what common challenges do they face and how do you help them overcome those obstacles?
The biggest obstacle that I see is the fear of being seen, period.
Okay.
It's not just about hitting publish on that post, on that blog post, on that video. It's really what comes after that. And that's where I do a lot of processing. Like you mentioned before, I'm a licensed therapist and coach. So I do a lot of emotional processing with my clients around the fear of being seen. And ultimately what they work through is we take action steps. They do post their stuff, that story that they've been wanting to share. And what I hear from all my clients is it is so liberating. I feel like I just took off a really uncomfortable bra. That's what people always tell me, one of those tight underwire padded bras that are just super uncomfortable. At the end of the day, you just want to take it off. And that's the message that I get from all my clients, but it really is around the fear of being seen. What will people think? Will they judge me? Will they think I'm less capable? That's a huge one because I work with a lot of high achieving women, right? So they're in private practice, they're doctors, they're entrepreneurs, and they're like, are people going to think I'm less capable to do my job? And that's what we work through because it is scary. It is scary to put stuff out there. I still get scared. I recently shared on my feed something personal about myself. If you go to my Instagram at my name is Vasavi, you can read about it. And I remember I shared it and I was just like, this is a lot. I shared about the fact about my love of cannabis. I openly talked about that, my love of cannabis. And I was just like, oh my God, are people going to think I'm a stoner? Are they going to think I'm this person that just like smokes weed all day? And that's not the case. And I didn't feel the need to have to over explain myself.
Yeah.
But these are the thoughts that come up, right? Like, are you going to think I'm less than? Are you going to think I'm incapable? Am I going to lose credibility? But it's like, if that's your truth, that's your truth. And if you're good with it, and that's what I work with my clients on, if you're good with it, if you feel comfortable within your skin about this particular topic, that is what matters. You need to be good with you first. First and foremost, don't go to social media to get that approval. So that's why a lot of processing has to take place before you even hit publish. It's not just about, oh my God, I'm going to put this thing out there. I hope everyone likes me. It's like, no, I am grounded in this. I am rooted in this. I feel comfortable with who I am as a person. And I'm saying this for me. And I'm saying this for people out there who may be feeling alone as well in this particular topic. And that's why I encourage my clients to say it out loud and hit publish.
That's amazing. I know, like, when everything you're saying, I'm relating to right now. About 2 years ago, when I started all of this, after I was done with my book proposal, they were like, well, now you have to like start sharing online and building a community. And I was like, you want me to step out from behind the computer and you want me to say these things out loud? Are you crazy?
Right.
And I'll never forget, it was like right before the holidays in December, and I posted something, and all I posted was like a slight, you know, a story about how maybe I didn't have a village and like I didn't come from like a perfect family. And I cried myself to sleep that night thinking this was the
Wow.
most vulnerable thing. Like I just ripped myself open for the world to see. And now I talk about so much. Like now I've gotten so comfortable in like my mission to help others and connecting with people and saying things out loud. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that, but I just keep going. Like, and I think about who
Yeah.
I was 2 years ago and how I've lived my whole life like that, like not saying things out loud. And it's liberating. It feels freaking
Yeah.
fantastic.
It
It,
really is. And you're also going to find that first of all, you're going to find out that no one really cares.
yeah,
And
I know.
that is the greatest freedom. It is. I was just boxering with a client. I have a client that I'm working with. And she messaged it and she just posted a video about something very personal. And I asked her, I'm like, well, how does it feel? Like, what are your takeaways from this? And she goes, I realize that no one really cares. And I'm like, isn't that so freeing? Like, it is so freeing. People are dealing with their own demons. People are dealing with their own internal noise. Like, yes, they'll see it and maybe they'll just be like, yeah, go girl, whatever it is. But it's
Yeah.
like, no one's, I think we think people are a lot more judgy than they actually are. And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of judgmental people out there, but ultimately you're doing this for yourself so that
Yeah.
you can be a person who is not so emotionally constipated, for lack of a better term, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't want to feel clogged up. I talk about this in the book. Our creative channel needs our internal self to be clear so that our ideas can move through us, our dreams can move through us. And so that's why it's so important that we continue to say it out loud. And I love what you shared. And I know that, you had to cry yourself to sleep, but I bet you there are people out there who resonate with what you said. And the more you keep doing it, the more you're going to build your community. And that's really the impact that you'll have on people.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. A lot of people, I mean, people just don't care as much as you think that they do. And also, you're not alone in any of the things that you're going through. I guarantee you, like there's probably 50 people on my street that can relate to something that you're saying right now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you're just not alone and you don't have to suffer in silence. Whether you say it out loud by going on a podcast or writing your book or just talking to a therapist or hiring a
Yeah.
coach, like you just need to turn up the volume on that voice and just like let it out.
There are so many ways. I just shared this on my Instagram yesterday. I shared 10 different ways that you can start expressing yourself because it doesn't always have to be on social media,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think that feels like the end all be all for people. But if you are building a business or brand online, yes, I mean, it does. You do have to start sharing some stuff about you that's going to help you create that community. And the secret isn't more. It's more vulnerability, right? How
Yeah.
can you be more vulnerable with your audience? And my greatest tip for self-expression is talk like you're talking to your best friend. I don't know about you, Carrie, but when I talk to my best friend, I curse a little bit. I'm very blunt. I'm very direct. I will just say it how I feel like saying it. And my best friends understand me. Now,
Yeah.
for the outside world, that might be a little scary for me to say out loud because I don't want people to judge me. I don't want them to think I'm mean. I don't want
Yeah.
them to think I'm not a nice person. But this goes back to knowing yourself and knowing your heart and knowing your intention. It all boils down to where are you speaking from? Are you speaking from a place of love with good intention, or are you speaking from neediness? Are you speaking from fear? Are you speaking from ego? And so being able to distinguish that will really help you on your journey to start being more self-expressed, using your voice and saying it out loud.
So powerful. And I know that everyone's listening, like sign me up, like buy the book, like go to her website, like research her, everything that she's doing. Um, like what are the first steps? Like what are the first steps that you recommend in like getting like into this speaking out loud and increasing our personal growth? Like what are the first steps?
I'm going to give two action items that you can
Okay.
take and you can choose one. The first is to just stand in front of a mirror and start talking. Start talking. If you feel like, and it could be the truth about anything, like, how are you feeling today? Just asking yourself, like, how am I really doing today? Stand in front of a mirror, look at yourself and ask yourself, how am I really feeling today? And you'll see that things will shift. You'll either cry, you'll laugh, you'll feel something move inside of you, but just keep doing that daily, every single day. The second thing that you can do, and I had a client do this, I said, record a 2-minute video. And obviously you don't have to get stifled by the time commit the time frame, but I just said 2 minutes. And I said, say the thing that you're afraid of saying out loud. Just record the video. You don't even have to hit publish. Just
Yeah.
record the video. And so she recorded the video. She sent it to me. She took a few days and then she finally posted it and she feels amazing. But those
Yeah.
are two things that you can do today. And they both require you having to look at yourself. You got to look at yourself as you're saying these things, like stop being invisible to yourself.
Ooh, stop being invisible to yourself. Ah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, in addition to this amazing new book that you also have a podcast, Say It Out Loud. So for those of
Yes.
you who are like, oh, reading, who has time to read a book? Buy the book, trust me. But you can also listen to Vasavi on her podcast. Can you tell us what people can get from your podcast? What can they
Yeah.
expect?
Yes. And also, I was going to say the book is on audiobook, and I'm a voiceover artist, and I did narrate the book. So if you don't want to read the book, you can always listen to it and download it. But my podcast is a mix of things. I talk about everything on my podcast: life after divorce, the power of being selfish, how to start trusting yourself, everything intended. Everything that I share on my podcast is intended to help you be more honest with yourself, make yourself more visible to yourself, and start using your voice.
Oh, so we've got two tools from you, the podcast and the book. I love it. I have to say, balancing your own mental health and well-being while coaching your clients and writing a book. How do you take care of yourself? Like, what are your self-care practices or your hacks?
Well, it's not the term hacks. I love the term hacks. I do a lot. I do a lot to take care of myself. I keep it very simple though. So before this interview, I've already eaten, I've drank my coffee, I prayed, I walked about 5,000 steps because I woke up a little later than usual today. I don't sleep with an alarm. I wake up naturally, but I make sure that I always connect with someone. I always connect with my sister, my older sister in the morning. We talk first thing in the morning. I always get my steps in. I connect with my clients. Connection is huge for me in the morning.
Connection.
But I also, I mean, I live alone with my dog. So I love connecting with my clients, my sister, my family, my friends in the morning, because that's when I have a lot of space. And I just use my morning to really be with myself. I use that to be with myself and to connect with others. And then I'm ready to start the day. So I'm not sitting here on this podcast interview with you right now, thinking about all the things that I have to do for myself. I've already done it.
You've done
right.
them.
So it's just doing the things that you know are going to make you feel good. Sunshine, water, connecting with someone, movement, hydration. I said hydration already, prayer, if that's your thing, journaling, if that's your thing, standing in front of a mirror and asking yourself, how are you doing? I stood in front of the mirror today, brushing my teeth. And I remember I just felt a little off, just a slightly bit off this morning. When you just have those off days.
All the time.
And I looked in the mirror and I was like, I was brushing my teeth and I just gave myself a smile. And I said, today's going to be a great day. Like, stay open to the magic. So I will always look at myself in the mirror in the morning and I'll say something to myself, because this is me with me, right? Like, this is me navigating this world. We're not trying to get external validation from people or outsourcing our power to people. This is really about generating that power and validation from within. So it takes a lot for me to balance myself. I have my off days. My clients are very understanding. But I have to say, I've been having less and less off days because I think I've been taking such good care of myself, slowing down, really listening to myself, and not putting so much pressure on myself. I recently uncovered this. And I think I always knew it, but I'm like starting to hear it even more, like the little pressures that I put on myself to be a certain way. And I was like, oh my God, stop. I literally had to tell myself stop the other day because I could hear that voice in my head being like, you should do this. You should do this. You're not doing this. And I'm like, oh my God, stop. So the voices can get really loud. They can get really loud, but that's why the tool of self-talk really comes into play, because I can ask myself a question, I can respond back thoughtfully, and I can make myself feel better. And I have a lot of conversations with God every day. I talk to God every single day. I have conversations with myself, with the God within, and that really helps as well to help me stay balanced while I'm running my business and my book and all the stuff that I got going on.
Yeah, there's just so much stuff. Well, I think it's really powerful, your routine, because the thing is, whether you live alone or you live with a family of 20 or 5 dogs or whatever, you have to carve out the time. I wake up like 45 minutes before my family gets up so I can spend some time with myself. This morning, I put my yoga mat down. I meditated for like 5 or 6 minutes. I read 2 chapters in your book with a cup of coffee, and then the alarm went off for them and the chaos came down, but I was self-connected. My feet were on the ground and I was like, bring it. Like, I'm ready. Now, if you don't take that time in the morning to like sort of set yourself up, like you said, I mean, I would be a basket case. I wouldn't be present in this interview right now. I would be thinking all the things I have to do. I would be living, feeling the chaos rather than being, finding the joy. So I
Exactly.
think that's so important what you just said.
Yeah.
And also, you know, the shoulds, like they say I should do this or they, or like who are all the theys or who's telling you how you should live your life? Like someone once told me like you're the CEO of your life. You
Yes.
run your life. So there's no like I have to or I should, you do you.
And especially those voices will really mess with you, especially if you're a creative, right? Because
Yeah.
there are so many creative people out there. Social media is showing us that every day. There's
Yeah.
so much creativity. There's so much humor out there. There's so much education and entertainment out there. And it's very easy to look at people who are doing things that are similar to what you want to be doing and compare yourself and say, oh, I should use that strategy. I
Yeah.
should use that strategy. But it's like, no, does that strategy actually work for you? Or
Yeah.
are you just trying to mimic someone else's strategy because you haven't taken the time to sit with yourself and ask yourself what's really working for you? It's usually the latter. And so
Yeah.
this is why it's so important that we take that time for ourselves. We carve out that time for ourselves and we get really honest with ourselves about what works for us and what doesn't.
Um, I cannot thank you enough for being here today. I mean, I'm going to listen to this over and over and continue reading your book. I highly recommend Vasavi's book, Say It Out Loud. Go to Amazon now and buy a copy, whether it's audio or paperback. Tune into her podcast. She is full of wisdom. And I just want you all to remember to breathe, listen, and like she says, to say everything out loud.
Yes, exactly. And I'm just going to say this because I think this might be the harsh reality for many people. You may not have someone safe that you can say it out loud to. That's why you need to become the safe space for yourself. You need to become the home for yourself that you never had. You need to become the mother and father for yourself that you never had. Be the family for yourself that you never had and become a safe space for yourself. So even if you don't have someone to say it out loud to, you can always say it out loud to yourself and become that safe space for yourself.
Oh, thank you so much for
You're
today.
welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of Surviving Roots. Let's continue this conversation as a community. For more updates about the show, remember to subscribe on iTunes and leave a review. Also, there will be some special bonus footage from the show on Instagram at carrie.fund. I'll see you there.